In September of 2019, I made a video talking about why this was the perfect time to purchase a 3DS. If you didn't get on board by then, I made another video in February of 2020 when the system was hitting $100. The new 2DS XL was hitting $100 on clearance at Walmart. Seems like from that point forward, from the start of all the, March 2020 craziness that's gone on over the past 2 years, from that point forward, the 3DS all of a sudden kind of came back. It became this sort of cult handheld, the last true handheld I believe we'll ever see, which is why it was very disappointing to find out the news about a week ago that the 3DS store was going to be shut down. People were upset about this. They're kind of going into panic buying now, and while you have a year yet to make the purchases, you only have a few months to still add funds to your account or use a credit card to make those purchases. So in a way, even though the store is going to be up for another year, feels like it's only about 4 months away from the whole plug being pulled on the 3DS and support ultimately coming to an end. We know they were discontinued, they weren't manufacturing them anymore, and knowing that Nintendo did this with the Wii, it was likely they were going to do this with the Wii U and the 3DS as well. Now, the Wii U is a whole different story I'll get into at another time, but you can rest assured that just like the PlayStation 3, which created a scare of its own that ultimately kind of turned around and they decided we're not going to shut down the PS3 store yet, but for a period of time skyrocketed game prices. People hurried to buy physical copies. They rushed to buy downloads of these games before they thought that their ability to access these games was going to be shut off forever. And in the case of the PS3, in the case of the 3DS, in the case of the Wii U, that is not true. And it's not true with the Wii either. And we're years removed from the Wii eShop being shut down, and yet you can access all of these many WiiWare games and virtual console games that once were accessible via the Wii shop, and that's just simply by having a modded Wii. Now, the good news is if you don't have a modded 3DS yet, it's actually very easy to get into. The Luma 3DS program that you need to use in order to get the system modded is very user-friendly. I mean, basically it boils down to following a guide that I'm going to have linked down in the description. You follow that step by step, and from what I've read, it seems like it's became very noob-friendly to the point where you really can't mess it up. Like, there used to be a risk, maybe you brick the system in the process. I'm not saying you won't, but it seems like, at least in what I've read, it's became very, very unlikely that you would do that in following the guide. Now, all you really need is an SD card and the console. You put some files on the SD card, you load it into your system, you follow a few steps, and you've got your system modded. Now, why is that important? Because regardless of what 3DS console you have, be it a 3DS, a 2DS, a new model, the one that doesn't even fold, that looks like a slab, it doesn't matter what one you have, and it doesn't matter if you're on the newest firmware because you updated it yesterday. None of that matters. You can get it modded, and that's important because unless you play backup games, it's something that Nintendo is very much seriously against, but when they leave you with no other option, it's like, what else do they think you're going to do? If you want to play a WiiWare title today, you need to mod your Wii, which is pretty easy to do and only requires an SD card, and then you need to download the game somewhere and acquire it so that you can load it onto the SD card and play it that way. You can't get it through the Nintendo eShop on the Wii anymore, and that's the same situation we're going to have with the 3DS. Because at the end of the day, do you want to be paying exorbitant prices for cartridges secondhand from somebody that's flipping them? They purchased them at Goodwill or something for next to nothing with the sole intention of flipping it, or you just get lucky at a secondhand store. You shouldn't have to do that to play these older games, but that's what it comes down to if you decide not to mod your system. The good news is modding it is an option, and acquiring games that way is available if it's a path that you choose to go down. Does it frustrate me to see Nintendo end support for the 3DS already when the Xbox 360, which has long been discontinued in production, is still allowing people to buy and download games off its storefront? And sure, individual titles have been delisted because of license issues, and that's understandable, but to have the whole plug pulled in the 3DS already when it's so much newer than that 2005 Xbox 360 just really seems unacceptable, but is completely par for the course with what I would expect Nintendo to do. It's more frustrating to me, though, to see people feel like they have to panic buy things off the Nintendo eShop now that they otherwise would have never purchased. Look, if there's some games you didn't get around to playing the 3DS and you know you probably will want to play them someday, cool, but a lot of people are just going to buy things just to have them because they have this fear, this FOMO, that if they don't get them now, they never will. And they don't understand that the reality is you just simply mod the system. And the timing of Earthbound being added to the Nintendo Switch Online service is just so ironic to me. Here's a game that you can outright buy, own forever on the 3DS and the Wii U, and you're not able to get it on the Nintendo Switch except through a subscription model. And the thing that's even crazier is it's not just these games that were released officially on the Virtual Console that you can play on a modded Wii U or 3DS. It's even games that weren't officially released, like tons and tons of GBA games. There are very few GBA games, and they weren't even really sold. They were just kind of a promotional thing that was given away. They were available on the 3DS, and if you have one of the new 3DS or new 2DS models, really should be one of the new models per se if you want to get a good experience on GBA, but you can try it on the base 3DS and 2DS as well. That so many of these GBA games are available because people have created custom files to make those GBA games available. So not only is Nintendo coming on with this, worst service, they're drip feeding you these games through the Nintendo Switch Online service, but the few titles that they have available officially on the Virtual Console are not at all inclusive of the entirety of the library. And I understand that there are licensing issues that will prevent them from releasing some of these games. It's like we'll probably never see GoldenEye 007 on the Nintendo 64 online unless they could really work that out. And, the way things stand with Microsoft, maybe that's possible, but then you also got to get the James Bond license in there, so it's very complicated. So because of that, it makes sense that some of these GBA titles were never released. But the fact that you can't play Fire Red, a first-party title, on the 3DS because they simply decided they didn't want to release that, they wanted to create artificial scarcity, it's not available. And it's like, who does this artificial scarcity actually benefit? The artificial scarcity benefits Nintendo occasionally when they decide to release, a Super Nintendo Mini or an NES Mini, and they release these products and they sell really well because they have these titles that they've kind of locked up and held on to, and you can't access, through any, traditional manner. So they sell them in this, one singular product, or they drip feed them in a subscription service. So the scarcity helps them out in that respect. But I think that more so the scarcity just helps out people that are buying, collecting, and then reselling these games. And in the people that are buying and they're collecting them, I get it. That's fine. You're a fan, you're collecting. But the people who are just doing this just for the dollar, they're collecting, they're flipping. The fact that this online service where you could just buy these games endlessly and they were never going to run out of print so long as you could download them, the fact that that's going away is like a fever dream to these people that are buying and flipping games. And people have been, buying and flipping, the channels you watch on YouTube and you see what they're buying and flipping. They have been kind of speculating on this for a while. It seems like a lot of them have kind of been acquiring 3DS games. They knew this was coming, and now they're holding this, great amount of inventory that they're going to sell off. It's the same thing. It's just capitalism. It's capitalism in general. But my point of this entire video is you don't have to play that game if you don't want to. Know that there are options available to you if you want to mod your system. It's easier than you think it is. The people who are like, I don't know if I could figure that out, you can. Trust me, you can. If you know how to play a game on the system, you're going to know how to get it modded because you at least have that much intuition that I think you can pull this off. Thank you guys for watching. I'm Bailey. I will see you in the next video.